Our speaker is Chuck Schwartz, and he's going to be talking about it's what you do next that matters most. Do not be complacent. Do not live in the past. We are forward thinking. We are moving on. We are going to be happy and out of this crap very soon. And here's why you should pay attention to him. He says, I have over 35 years experience in business management, business ownership, strategic business development, sales and sales management, and marketing. I also recently published my first book, Chuck's Lemonade, a recipe for inspired thinking and living, finding gifts when life gives you lemons and turning your lemons into lemonade. A collection of stories and lessons for guiding and helping you navigate life struggles, find gifts in negative situations, and turn lemons into lemonade. From one who has been doing this for a very long time, let's give a very warm welcome to Chuck Schwartz.
Well, thank you, Kathy. That was a wonderful welcome. And Shannon, thank you for inviting me. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm just going to move all the pictures out of the way, all the people that are on there. All right, so wonderful. Really appreciate you having me back. It's been quite a few years since I've been to Launchpad and presented to Launchpad, and I'm going to talk about those few years in a few moments, but I just want to say it's wonderful to be here. And yes, my goal is that you come away with this with inspiration and motivation to both help you through your job search, but also through life. And as Kathy said, and as you can clearly see from the name of my presentation, it's what you do next that matters most. Oh, hang on a second. Let me just get my screen here. There we go. All right, so let's start off with a very simple question, right? What do you do when life gives you lemons, right? I really want you to think about that for a second. Maybe you're out of work, as I imagine some or many of you are. Maybe you like your job, but you're looking for a new one. Worse, maybe you hate your job and you're trying to find a new one. Kathy mentioned it a few minutes ago. Maybe you need more education or more training to land the job you want. Maybe you feel you've been through enough, right? You're too old, but you have enough experience, and all of this is just unfair. I get it. Feeling this way is common. Even more common is feeling all the associated emotions that go along with that and the feelings that we all come away with when we're feeling this way. Things like anger, anxiety, blaming, boredom, chaos, complaining, drama, fear, frustration, guilt, pity, regret, resentment, stress, and worry. Anybody here today feeling this way? I'm guessing you might. I get it. I hear you. We can all feel this way, me included. So I want you to think about this, right? If you're thinking today, why, or why me? This is something that came out of the book that I recently published, something that I've written, and it states, life doesn't always go as you planned or as you wished. That's life. It's what you do next that matters most, right? If we were all together, sitting together in the auditorium where I presented years ago, and we were all cozy and intimate and sitting together, I would ask you, I would encourage you to repeat those words out loud with me. So I'm going to pretend we're doing that right now, right? I'm going to pretend that we're all together and we're all saying out loud, life doesn't always go as you planned or as you wished. That's life.
Chuck, I think we're getting some sound off your system.
I'm sorry. My phone was buzzing, but I'm moving it. Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
All right, sorry about that. So again, I was going to say, let's say it all together. And I know we're not together, so it doesn't have the same effect. But say it to yourself then. Life doesn't always go as you planned or as you wished. That's life. It's what you do next that matters most. Because it's true. Think about it for a moment. In life, in your job search, wherever you are, whatever's going on, it's what you do next that matters most. So here's kind of my agenda for today's presentation. I'm going to talk about me for a few minutes and why you should even be listening to me. I'm going to share something I call I Get It. I've been there too. I'm going to talk about this concept of finding gifts when life gives you lemons. We're going to talk about how in all of life's struggles and in all of the negative things that can go on, there are often underlying gifts and blessings. And you have to have your eyes open to see them. You have to be willing to look for them. You have to want to find them. We're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about this concept of habits and how first we make our habits and then our habits make us. Then we're going to talk about the word habits because the ingredients in Chuck's Lemonade are built into the word habits. We'll talk about that. And then at the end, we'll save time for questions. Excuse me. And I'm not monitoring the chat, but if anyone wants to chat the questions, they can, or if you want to save them towards the end, however we can make this most helpful for everybody. So going back to what Kathy said, and I wrote in here 30 years. I'm going to admit it, it's more like 35, right? I'm giving away my age now. Kathy mentioned 1967 before. I was here for that. But yes, I have over 35 years of very successful business ownership, business leadership, senior level sales and strategic business development experience and marketing experience. I've done a lot. I am a former Launchpad Job Club attendee, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And I'm also a recent author, and my book, Chuck's Lemonade, A Recipe for Inspired Thinking and Living, for finding gifts when life gives you lemons, and for turning your lemons into lemonade. It's quite frankly, it's kind of my crown jewel. It's a story about my life. I go through my life, my teens, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, now in my 50s. And I talk about some of the challenges, some of them small, some of them quite large, some of them involving job search and job loss, and how after years, I kind of reflected back and I recognized that there were actual gifts in most of those negative situations. And when I really thought about them and when I really looked at them, I found a way to turn those gifts into lemonade. And sometimes I didn't even realize I was doing it. But we're going to talk, a little bit about that as well. So let's start, right? June 9th, 2017. And by the way, there's a younger picture of me, a little less gray in the beard, I noticed. But yes, June 9th, 2017. I get it. I've been there too. On June 9th, 2017, I was standing in the auditorium. This is pre-COVID when we were allowed to meet in an auditorium. And I was standing in that room talking to the folks that were like me that day at Launchpad Job Club looking for a job. I was out of work for about a year. I was coming off a situation where I actually had recently moved to Austin. I had joined a software company in Austin. I not only went to work there, but became an owner. And things were going great. Life was wonderful. I had just built a brand new home. My story was awesome. And then the world changed in about a day. And my business partner stole from me. My business partner lied to me. And everything came crumbling down. And about a year later, I was standing in that room, kind of telling that story, but also telling the story of something I did between those days, about a year. I was angry. I was mad. I was stressed. I was worried. And I needed to redirect those feelings. So I got up every day and I chose to do something differently. I chose to find the good things that were going on. I chose to be grateful for what I had. I chose to want to work on making my days great. I chose to look through my past and think about the times in my life when I had been through other challenges and I had overcome them. Those days turned into journaling and a blog. And I began writing and sharing the stories and the lessons that I learned. And I started sharing them on Facebook. And little by little, those lessons and those stories became to be known as something that I call Chuck's Lemonade. Chuck's way of turning his challenges into blessings and finding gifts and overcoming my challenges. So I met Shannon through the process, and I met Kathy, and I came and I asked if I could talk about what I've been through and talk about how I've chosen to try to overcome it. And I talked about the habits that I had started developing and how this all became this thing called Chuck's Lemonade, and how a handful of people started following me on Facebook, and how I realized that while I was going through this, they were actually getting inspired by my stories and my lessons. And I was helping myself by doing this, and I could see I was helping them. Now, fast forward about 6 months. It's another 6 months into this process, and my wife and I don't know exactly what we're going to do next. But we decide, I have to say in the middle of this also, we had a challenge happen, and my wife became ill. And that was a little bit of a setback for us because it took some months to overcome that as well. But anyway, we decided to take a trip to our favorite place in the world, which is Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. And we decided to visit the beach one day. You can see it's winter time. We're wearing winter coats and we're wearing scarves. It does get quite chilly in Hilton Head during the winter. Not anything like where I come from in New York originally, where it snows quite a bit, but it does get a little chilly. But anyway, we're standing on the beach, and we decided that day on the beach, we were going to take a little wooden box and we were going to write down all the things that were wrong in the world to us that day, all the challenges we were facing, the jobs, and anything else, her illness, challenges that had surfaced over the past 10 years, things that I was writing about every day. And we took all of those things and we wrote them down on little pieces of paper, and we put them in the box. And then we took the box and we threw the box into the ocean. And we said goodbye to them. Literally within seconds. Now, I remind you, we're on Hilton Head Island. It's a place that my wife and I had dreamed about getting to someday and dreamed about retiring to. My wife turns to me and says, "What are we waiting for? Let's do it now." We did. My wife had found some work in between all of this, and it just so happens that the place that she worked for not only had a very large office in Austin, but they also had a presence, guess where? On Hilton Head Island. And she went in the next day when we returned home, and she said to them, we remember I told you we'd like to get to Hilton Head someday? Well, that day is now. And they said, "Well, what's your time frame?" And we said, "Doesn't matter, 2 days, 2 months, whatever could make sense." But when something opens up, even if it's 2 years, when something opens up, we'd like it to happen now. About a day later, my wife gets a phone call. That day had come. They wanted to meet us. They wanted her to come to Hilton Head. They wanted to see if we were really ready to make this move. The answer was yes. And we put our home on the market. It sold in 8 days. And we literally picked up with what we had left, and we moved to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. The purpose of this is, as you can see from my book, a story is you are not a tree. If you are stuck, move. You might be stuck in a job. You might be stuck somewhere. You might be stuck someplace, but you are not a tree. If you are stuck, move. What I want to tell you is we land on Hilton Head Island. And my next job appeared very, very soon after. I'll fill you in on that a little bit more. But my next job, because I went there without anything, not knowing what to do next. And then I did something that mattered most as soon as we got there. But anyway, the purpose of this is you have options, right? You are not stuck. If you feel stuck, get unstuck. And the truth of the matter is that there are no rules. It's your life. It's your great. Do what's best for you. It's what you do next that matters most. So I'm going to share another story with you right now in the same vein, right? I'm going to take you back to 1995. It's what you do next that matters most. It's never too late. You can always find gifts. You can always make lemonade. So it's 1995, and I am about 10 years into dropping out of college. I am 10 years into working at a job that I have come to hate. I do not like what I do. It's not anything like I ever dreamed about. But in those 10 years, I got married, I bought a house, I had 3 kids, and now life and all of that depended on me. So the job I hated was a necessity. That being said, I was very unhappy. I needed to do something different. I was 31 years old at the time, and I had not gone to college. So not knowing what to do next, I decided to just enter into a job search. And I put it, back then we actually opened the newspaper and we looked for jobs that way. And I started circling things that seemed to make sense for me. And I created this wonderful looking resume that made my world look a whole lot rosier than it really was in this job that I hated. Anyway, I finally get a response and I go on an interview. Now I want to stop for a second and tell you about this because that day, the job I was working at, I wore jeans and a t-shirt to work every day. The job that I had answered the ad for was a suit and tie. At least the interview was a suit and tie job to me. So I had to find a way to break away from this place I worked, where I wore jeans and a t-shirt, and find a place that I could change into the suit and tie that I left in the car, get to the interview, and get back to the job without wasting too much time. The job I had was very demanding of my time, and it was very difficult. Put it out there, little white lies to get myself out of what I was doing. But anyway, I did it. I got through that first interview, and I was actually called back for a second. Wonderful. I go through the same thing all over again. Bring the suit and tie in the car, find a McDonald's, run in the bathroom, change, get there without being too crazed and out of my mind and all of this. And I interview again. It goes great. I'm called for a third interview. And this interview was with a pretty significant person there. And here we go again, running to wherever I could find a bathroom, change my clothes, get there, try to look presentable, try not to be all out of breath and crazed. And I sit down and we start the interview. And he picks up my resume and he looks at it and he says, it all looks good. It all sounds good. But the thing I'm really struggling with is you never finished college. And he said, Chuck, I'm sorry to say, and this was after talking for some time. He said, Chuck, I'm sorry to say, I can't hire you. I'm not going to hire you. I need a college graduate. Now, take you back. I'm into this job that I terribly hate for 10 years. This had been a couple of month process. I had talked my way into this was already going to happen. This hit me like a ton of bricks. I got in my car after I left, probably cried for a bit, be honest with you. And I returned to the McDonald's or wherever I had to change my clothes and got back to my jeans and t-shirt and went back to work, to the job I hated. And I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I realized at that moment that if I was going to do whatever I needed to do to get out of this job, maybe the answer was going back to college. So I did just that with the job that I hated, which, by the way, I worked about 80 hours a week. It was a union construction job. And back in the 1980s and 90s, that was 80 hours a week. I took all of that with the house and the 3 young children, and I returned to college. And here's the best part of it. It was the most amazing experience. Here I am now in my early 30s. I'm not an 18-year-old any longer, and I'm doing this for a reason. I'm paying for it, first of all, and I'm doing this for a reason, because I want a better job. I want to transition into the kind of work that I want to do. So I pour my heart and soul into going back to school. And I'll share something with you today. In 2020, I am still friends with the primary mentor and professor who helped me and guided me through that process. That's how meaningful it was to me. Anyway, I give myself a crazy deadline for graduating because I wanted to get out of that job that bad, and I did it. And I graduated on time, at least on time for me, and I made the job change. And then here's what happens. This cascade of events occurs. I make the job change. I start with a small IT consulting company that appreciated what I could bring to the table. That company gets acquired. That new company makes me a director. And now fast forward 20 something years, and I have a very fulfilling career all the way up until I find this software company in Austin, Texas, that asked me to come in and become a part of the organization and one of the owners. So the point in all of this is it's never too late. I get it. I felt older, but I needed something to happen. I went back to school, and I did that because it was important to get what I wanted to get. When I heard those words that hit me like a ton of brick, those words were actually a gift. Chuck, no, this is not the right time. You have more work to do. You have more work to do on yourself. Go back to school. Go back and do it right? Make lemonade. And I did just that. The crazy part in all of that, of course, is the way it ended in Austin, but we're going to get to what happened after that. So I'm not going to stay on this slide very long, but I want to wrap up that story and what I just talked to you about with another line from my new book. And that is that sometimes the best gifts don't come gift wrapped. Think about that, right? Think about the challenges, and then think about if you really look into them and try to find the positives in some of those worst and negative situations. Sometimes the best gifts don't come gift wrapped. So it's 2018. My wife and I decided to make that move and get to Hilton Head Island. She comes with a job. It's wonderful. I come without the job. I spend the first couple of months getting our condo set up and making dinners and walking on the beach whenever I could. I'm walking on the beach, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And that's when the light bulb went off. And that's when something hit me and I figured it out. When I was in Austin and I was an owner in that company, I had built a relationship with an organization that was based in the New England region in the Northeast. And I had built a relationship with an individual there that when everything kind of fell apart for me in Austin, he actually offered me an opportunity to come and work there. And I turned him down. And the reason I turned him down was because they wanted me to move there. They wanted me to pick up from Austin and move back to the Northeast, where I had spent the first 50 years of my life. And quite frankly, I never intended to return to. So I'm walking on the beach and the light bulb goes off that maybe the answer is that individual and that organization. I remember the discussion about him offering me an opportunity, but telling me if it was going to happen, it meant a move there. And I didn't want to do that. I was in the place of my dreams. I landed where I wanted to be, albeit a little early. We had intended to retire on Hilton Head, and I'm not at retirement age yet. But anyway, it appeared to me that it might be the answer. So thinking about all of what I just told you from my book, some of the chapters in my book, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So the individual and the organization had gone on 3 years without me now. I had no idea if they would still want me, if there was an opportunity for me, but I knew the only way I was ever going to find out was to ask. Another chapter in my book. If you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. So I'm walking on the beach and I say, you know what? I'm going to do it. Get in my car, I drive home, and I make a phone call. And thankfully, the individual that I wanted to reach answered the phone. And I said, hey, Joe, it's Chuck. He said, what's going on, Chuck? I said, guess what? I moved to Hilton Head. He said, get out of here. I knew you always talked about that. He said, that's awesome. What are you going to do? And I said, you know, Joe, I have no idea. I said, but maybe I do have an idea. Let me throw something at you. And I reminded him how he had offered me a job years ago. And I reminded him that the reason I didn't take it was because of the one thing that he put on me that I couldn't say yes to. And I said, Joe, let me ask you a question. How about I do what we talked about then? How about I do the job we discussed, but I do it from Hilton Head? If you would allow me to work from home, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. We talked, he said, I'm listening. We talked a little bit longer. And one day later, the answer was yes. That was January 2018. And today, I still work for that company on my terms from my beautiful condo on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. The lesson is right there on the screen. It's what you do next that matters most. Sometimes you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Sometimes you have to ask a question that you're uncomfortable asking. If you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. But guess what? If you do ask the question, sometimes you make lemonade. Similar thought process, different story. My youngest child, who is now 26 years old, my daughter, Alyssa, she recently graduated with her master's degree, and she is now a certified English teacher. She finishes her certification recently, and she starts putting out feelers for opportunities for new jobs. Amazingly, she gets 3 interviews the first day. One interview is on a Wednesday, one interview is on a Thursday, one interview is on a Friday. She calls me, she lives on Long Island in New York, and we talk every day. And she calls me and she tells me how excited she is, and I congratulate her. And she said, yeah, I'm gonna go on Wednesday, and I'll let you know how I make out. And she calls me and she says, Dad, they offered me the position. I said, wow, that's great. She said, yeah, but I still have these on Thursday and Friday. What should I do? I said, go anyway. I said, you know, you always have something to fall back on now. She goes on Thursday and they make her an offer for more money, for something even better. She calls me Thursday and she says, Dad, unbelievable. You were right. They made me a better offer. What should I do about tomorrow? I said, the answer is easy, Alyssa. You go and you see what they have to say. Guess what? Better offer, closer to home, everything she ever wanted. The job she took was the Friday one. If we didn't speak, she may not have gone Thursday or Friday. She truly now believes in, if you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. If you don't follow through, the answer is no. You have to put yourself out there, or the answer is no. You have to follow through, or the answer is no. The answer is only yes if you work on making it a yes. Make lemonade. So I talked a little bit in the beginning about the concept of habits. And I wanted to take you back to the story I was telling you about when I came and presented at Launchpad back in 2017. And I talked about the year that had gone on between when I had left the company after my partner lied and stole from me. And I spent about a year trying to figure out what I was going to do next. A year that was quite honestly difficult. I was in my 50s. I had never been unemployed in those 30 years. And I wasn't feeling so good about myself. And I didn't want to let that person or what had happened to me define me. So I decided to do something different. And I knew it started with my habits. So just as if I had a job, I got up at the same time every morning, as if I was going to work, because now figuring out what I was going to do next was my job. I knew I had to get my head in a better place. So I began a practice of writing down every day, what am I grateful for today? And I went through the process of answering that question. I thought about all the things I had, even though I didn't have a job. I had a home. I had an air-conditioned home. I had food in the refrigerator. I had a car that started every day. I had things. I thought about the things I had, and I spent no time at all on the things I didn't have or that I wished I had. I focused on the good stuff. I focused on my gratitude. That went on for a while, and then I took that one step further, and I started answering another question every morning as part of this new routine that I had started. And that question is, what would make today great? Here's the funny part. What I learned in that process of answering that question, what would make today great, is doesn't matter if it's too big, it doesn't matter if it's small or big. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small. It's my great, it's my day. It could be getting the laundry done. It could be sending out 10 emails for 10 new opportunities. It could be, as Kathy talked about before, reaching out to people in my network just to maintain some encouragement. Could be all the above. It could be thinking through my past and trying to find some positives in some of those negative situations, the gifts. And the interesting thing that happened out of the back of that is that I began a third journal. And that journal is what turned into a blog that I have now been writing for well over 4 years, never missing a day, every single morning without fail. Shannon can tell you, because Shannon gets those emails from me. And that blog is called Chuck's Lemonade. lessons and stories of how life can throw you lemons, but you can choose to make lemonade. You can choose to find the gifts. You can choose to stay positive. You can choose to ask the questions. You can choose to make your days great. It's a choice. The opposite is chance. Right? Anybody can take a chance, but people can make a choice. And I chose to find my gratitude every day. I chose to work on what would make today great. And then guess what? I got busy doing those things that I said would make the day great. Because here's the best part of that. If I do them, I feel great about myself, right? And when I did do them, I actually celebrated it. I didn't just do them, I celebrated it. I gave myself a pat on the back, an attaboy. Good job, Chuck, right? I was making my days great, no matter how big or how small. Guess what? As things went on, the things on that list got bigger and bigger and bigger. It became less about me and more about others at some point. And now making other people's days great was really important to me too. Thus, Chuck's Lemonade growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And 4 years later, not having missed one day of writing my blog and sharing inspirational stories, lessons, and stories about finding gifts, I have about 500 followers on various social media and email. And the best part also is that I published a book. A little bit about the book real quick. So last New Year's Eve, so December 31st, 2019, my wife and I took a trip to St. Martin, and we were sitting on the beach, and I was blogging. I was writing my blog, and another light bulb went off. It seems to happen at the beach a lot, huh? But a light bulb went off. And I said to my wife, I have a lot of content here. I should write a book. She looked at me and I looked at her and thought, why not? Right? I can do anything. It's something that I had talked about. There was always this author inside of me. Clearly, it would be something that would make my days great. So I decided to get busy. Part of me getting busy, just like when I went back to school, I gave myself a deadline. My deadline was May 1st of 2020. So guess what happened in March of 2020, right? The COVID situation hits and life changes. And, quite frankly, I could have made that an excuse, right? But again, sometimes life gives you lemons and you have to make lemonade. I was determined. I was not going to let anything stand in my way. I self-published. The self-publisher was out in, the publishing company, was out in California. So of course we had never met. They were short-staffed, all the COVID-related things. And I was not letting it happen. I published my book on May 1st, just as planned. So maybe one of the habits that I can share with you that I think is a very good habit to take from this is deadlines. Give yourself a deadline, regardless of what it is. If it's the laundry, I want to have it done by noon. And if it's writing a book, I want to have it done by this day. So, Chuck's Lemonade. Chuck's Lemonade is actually found inside of the word habits. HABITS. The letter H stands for honesty. The letter A stands for acceptance. The letter B stands for beach. The letter I for inspiration. The letter T for trust. The letter S for service. I'll explain them a bit. Honesty, right? Live honestly with yourself and with others. I lived honestly back in 2017-ish when I called that individual where I work now and told him what was going on. Actually, it was 2016, excuse me. And he asked me to come work for him, but he put a demand on me that I could not live with. And I honestly turned him down. Now, fast forward to 2018, and I moved to Hilton Head, and it's time to have an honest conversation with him. I'm ready to come work for you, but on different terms. And I'm honest about what I want. I'm honest about what I want to do. I'm honest about where I want to do it from. And he says yes. Acceptance, right? Accept the things you can't change, but change the things you can't accept. Go back to that story from 1995 and getting slapped in the face with, I'm not going to get the job because I haven't finished college. Nothing I can do about that. I have to accept that. I could choose not to accept it. It's not going to change anything. I had to accept it. But I could change it. And guess what? I did change it. And I changed it in a really, really good way. And again, as I explained, the change created a cascade of events that I could never have predicted, and events that have got me here today with you. So beach, right? You're all guessing because I've told you about being on the beach and getting my inspiration, and that's not this. The beach is for find your beach, and find your beach in quotes, the word beach in quotes. When I was out of work for that year in Austin, and when I met the folks for the first time at Launchpad, I get it. I know what it's like to be out of work. I understand. I get the negative feelings and the emotions and all the things we talked about. For me, the best way to deal with that, aside from my journaling, was walking. I got out every day and I walked and I searched for inspiration. I was raised on Long Island in New York, so I was raised by the beach. I loved going to the beach. I loved walking on the beach and swimming in the beach. So when I was in Austin and landlocked, other than, of course, Lake Travis and Lake Austin, I didn't have a beach. So guess what? The roads and highways were my beach. The cows that I would pass and that would moo at me and I would moo back at them, they were my beach. The bluebonnets, they were my beach. I found my beach. I found a space and a place I could visit so that I could think better, so that I could live better. I challenge you to find your beach if you need to think better so that you can live better. The I is for inspiration. Excuse me. As in find inspiration, as in live inspired, as in be inspiring, right? I challenge you that when you get past this, because you will, when you get through this, because you will, live differently going forward, right? Live inspired. And then after you live inspired, be inspiring. Share with others. Be an inspiration. It's infectious. Be grateful. Being grateful provides you with the inspiration. Think about what you have. Think less about what you don't have and what you wished you had, right? Do things that make you smile. Make your days great. Nothing is too big or too small. It's your great. Do things to make others smile. It just might make you smile too. Make an impact. Be a role model. Be inspiring. Trust, as in trust your gut. This is a tough one, right? Because our minds lie to us. Our minds tell us things. Our minds fill us with guilt and stress and worry. But your gut never lies to you. Your gut knows what's right and what you want. Your gut knows what to do. That day, after we had moved to Hilton Head, my gut told me to call Joe and to try something I had really never tried before, but to get myself uncomfortable and ask a question that I didn't really know what the answer was going to be. But guess what? If I didn't ask it, it was going to be no anyway. So I asked it, and look what happened. And then the S is for service, as in love and serve yourself and others. And I put the word yourself before others for a reason. Sounds selfish, I know that, but it's not. If you don't take care of yourself and you don't take care of your needs, you don't really have what you need to take care of others. You can, but it comes from a different place. If you take care of yourself, you have much more than to give others. So serve yourself and others. I can say, certainly you've all heard this, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. So fill your cup, and your cup will absolutely have enough and more to fill others. And then finally, from my book, surrender in a good way to habits and to living habits. When we hear the word surrender, its connotation is a negative. And I say, nope, it's a positive. Surrender in a good way. Give everything of yourself to live honestly, to practice acceptance, to find your beach when you need to think better so that you can live better, to find inspiration, to live inspired and be inspiring, right? Surrender to trusting your gut. Your gut knows what you want and what's right for you. Stop listening to your mind so much and trust your gut. And then serve, right? Love and serve yourself and others, right? Surrender in a good way. So I challenge you all to do this, and you'll be more open to finding and seeing gifts when life gives you lemons, and you'll be better equipped to turn your lemons into lemonade. I'm going to wrap up on this. Another chapter from my book. You never know how strong you are. There I was in 2017, standing in front of Launchpad, jobless for the first time in 30-something years, having just walked away from the most fun professional work I had ever done, and it all had come crumbling down around me, and I didn't know what to do next. Little did I know that that experience would start a cascade of events, which would then, in 2020, have me standing in Barnes & Noble next to my book on the shelf. You never know how strong you are. So to wrap up, if you'd like to receive my inspirational blog every day, a couple of ways you can do that. You can email me at chuckslemonade.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, where I post my daily blog as well, Chuck Makes Lemonade, or you can just type in the search Chuck's Lemonade. On Instagram, Chuck's Lemonade. And I would highly suggest, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can search my name, or C.E. Schwartz is my LinkedIn. And then finally, go make lemonade. Go make lemonade. You can do it.